News of the day.
Mr. Zimmerman, have you made a decision as to whether or not you want to testify in this case?
With values that never die.
There are certainly a lot of controversies or scandals brewing right now when it comes to the Obama administration.
This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace.
Dealing with the federal government is not always high-tech, and it's not always user-friendly.
The stories that matter.
This is a massive escalation in the tension here in Egypt.
The issues that count.
I don't know why the media tries to make this into a sensation. We have never hidden the fact that we supply Syria with weapons.
This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace.
He's got the red, white, blue flying high on the farm. Semper Fi tattooed on his left arm. Spend a little more in the store.
Welcome to American Heartland with Dr. Grace. Thank you for joining me on your Saturday afternoon. It is a gorgeous summer. I am enjoying every single minute of it. I even had the opportunity to go to my first summer concert in years. If you're a mom of young kids like I have been, you know that your hobbies fall by the wayside for a while. And finally, I can resume some of them. And I saw Taylor Swift in concert. A lot of fun. She was really mesmerizing. And it really gave me a window into the youth because there were so many teenagers there and I was observing them. And I got a sense of why her music connects. Her music is all about heartbreak, and it looks like among teens there's a lot of heartbreak. That's a topic, though, for another day. I want to get rolling on the big news story of the week and of the summer. The Republican debate in Cleveland, Ohio, the first Republican debate. And what a show it was. I've seen lots of these debates. Most of them are dreadfully boring with just a couple of highlights. But this one, there were fireworks from beginning to end. And what is the news that comes out of this debate? Well, I would say that this debate is characterized by two big losers. Loser number one, Fox News. No question about it, Fox News did not deliver an even-handed debate. It was clear from the questions that were asked that Donald Trump was the target. And they were relentless in trying to embarrass him, throw him off his game, humiliate him, and really destroy his candidacy. It's no secret that the analysts on Fox News do not like Donald Trump. They have called him a clown, a mediocrity, someone that was likely to fade. And they're shocked that his poll numbers are strong. And so they threw everything at him. And it was very clear. I'll tell you how it was clear. It was very clear that there was a bias in the debate structure. It wasn't so much just the questions that were asked of him that weren't asked of the other candidates. It was that when he gave a response, they came back at him with a follow-up, trying to get him to make a mistake, trying to trip him up. If you notice, with a lot of the other candidates, they would ask a question, even if a question was a little bit embarrassing or challenging, but they would let the candidate answer the question and move on. But only with Donald Trump did they interject, did they interrupt, did they say no, and they followed up with another question. And I think there, more than in any other part of the debate, you could see that there was an agenda to bring the man down. So, loser number one, Fox News, for a biased debate that had a clear agenda. Having said that, loser number two of the first Republican debate was Donald Trump. He had a lot to lose, and boy, did he drop the ball. You know, I was thinking on my way driving into the studio to record the show that when Trump first came on the scene, he kept saying, Mitt Romney choked in the last election. I couldn't help but think, Mitt Romney outperformed you in every debate that he ever did. And if that was the result, well, Mitt Romney had great debates and he still lost the election. What are you going to do? How did Donald Trump lose the debate? Well, he had to he should have been ready. That's one thing I want to emphasize. He should have been ready for the bias in Fox News. He should be ready for the hostility he's going to get in the media. And if he could not effectively handle Fox News, which for all the flaws of Fox News is still better than all the other media outlets out there that are going to be even worse. They're going to be even more antagonistic if he should ever be in the general election. If he can't handle the hostile questions from Fox News effectively, then he's going to be toast in the general election. Well, let's take it one at a time. The first question right out of the bat that was launched at him was, if the Republican Party doesn't nominate you, basically asked it of all the candidates on the stage, who on this stage vows not to issue a third-party challenge? Listen to this.
Is there anyone on stage, and can I see hands, who is unwilling tonight to pledge your support to the eventual nominee of the Republican Party and pledge to not run an independent campaign against that person? Again, we're looking for you to raise your hand now. Raise your hand now if you won't make that pledge tonight. Mr. Trump, to be clear, you're standing on a Republican primary debate.
I fully understand.
The place where the RNC will give the nominee the nod.
I fully understand.
And that experts say an independent run would almost certainly hand the race over to Democrats and likely another Clinton. You can't say tonight that you can make that pledge.
I cannot say. I have to respect the person that if it's not me, the person that wins. If I do win and I'm leading by quite a bit, that's what I want to do. I can totally make that pledge. If I'm the nominee, I will pledge I will not run as an independent. But and I am discussing it with everybody, but I'm talking about a lot of leverage. We want to win, and we will win. But I want to win as the Republican. I want to run as the Republican nominee.
So tonight you can't say if another one of these...
This is what's wrong. I mean,
Okay.
This is what's wrong. He buys and sells politicians of all stripes. He's already,
Dr. Paul.
hey, look, he's already hedging his bet on the Clintons, okay? So if he doesn't run as a Republican, maybe he supports Clinton or maybe he runs as an independent.
Okay.
But I'd say that he's already hedging his bets because he's used to buying politicians.
Well, I've given him plenty of money.
Fireworks right from the start. Now, the bias of Fox News is evident by asking that question first and foremost when Trump has already answered it in the media many, many times. But it was clear that they were trying to trip him up. So, losers, Fox News. But loser, Donald Trump, because he should have seen that one coming. And his response was a very egotistical one. If it's not me, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. If it's not me, then I may not support the Republican Party. He should have been very magnanimous. He should have said what he has said effectively in the media, which is, look, I want to ensure that this process is fair, and I'm not going to rule out any options, but there are many worthy candidates on this field, and we'll make that decision at the appropriate time. You see, that's a calm, cool, and collected answer that shows composure, that shows self-confidence. Instead, his response was he was very testy, he was very defensive, he seemed angry almost right away, and he also came across as an egotist. It's all about me, me, me. Well, of course, if I win the nomination, then I support the Republican Party. This is the caricature of Donald Trump. Trump, the egotist, and his response fed right into it. I'm surprised. As an employer, he made the first mistake that usually when you interview somebody, an employee, one of the questions everybody's asked is, are you a team player? He made the most elementary mistake of even getting a job, right? Even what he would probably ask an employee. And the problem with Trump in that response is he did not come across as a team player. And that soured the mood of the crowd. From that moment, he lost the crowd. Even later, he said, I don't think this crowd likes me very much. Well, why should they like you? You're on a team, the Republican nominating platform, and right away you're saying, if I don't win, I'm not on the team. You come across as a sore loser and as an egotist. And then it got worse for the Donald because Megyn Kelly went after him. And I saw this coming, folks. I've been warning you guys about this. The guy's been married 3 times with a reputation for treating women shabbily. And Megyn Kelly went in for the kill. Roll it.
One of the things people love about you is you speak your mind and you don't use a politician's filter. However, that is not without its downsides, in particular when it comes to women. You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
No, it wasn't. Your Twitter account, for the record, it was well beyond Rosie O'Donnell.
Yes, I'm sure it was.
Your Twitter account has several disparaging comments about women's looks. You once told a contestant on Celebrity Apprentice it would be a pretty picture to see her on her knees. Does that sound to you like the temperament of a man we should elect as president? And how will you answer the charge from Hillary Clinton, who is likely to be the Democratic nominee, that you are part of the war on women?
I think the big problem this country has is being politically correct. I've been challenged by so many people, and I don't frankly have time for total political correctness. And to be honest with you, this country doesn't have time either. This country is in big trouble. We don't win anymore. We lose to China. We lose to Mexico, both in trade and at the border. We lose to everybody. And frankly, what I say, and oftentimes it's fun, it's kidding, we have a good time, what I say is what I say.
What I say is what I say? You know, the problem with Trump in this performance was he acted like the boss of the company. Hey, what I say is what I say. He doesn't understand. He's not our boss. He's there to win our votes. In fact, I got news for you, Donald Trump. I'm the boss. The audience is the boss. The American people is the boss. And if you become president of the United States, you're working for us. So what I say is what I say might work for the Trump empire, but it doesn't work when you're trying to court the American people. Now, I thought he was very funny when he answered Megyn Kelly's remarks at first by saying, well, it was only Rosie O'Donnell. He basically had the crowd at that moment because everybody was laughing. She's not very well liked among Republicans. So that was a really good retort on his part. And here you see Megyn Kelly, she kept sticking the knife in. That's where you saw the bias. It's coming back and saying, no, it was more than Rosie O'Donnell. You made a lot of comments about a lot of people. And then Donald Trump admitted, and he said, I'm sure it was. So he says one thing, and then he had to backtrack right on stage. I thought his answer emphasizing, we don't have time for political correctness. Like he's in charge. Let me do what I need to do. Get political correctness out of the way now. Look, Mitt Romney was defeated with this bogus argument about a war on women. You're not going to win in the general election unless you answer this question. So yes, Fox News was biased, but you got to be ready for a good answer. To be honest with you, I didn't know that Donald Trump had said on his show, it would be a pretty picture to see that girl on her knees. When I heard Megyn Kelly say that, it turned my stomach because it confirmed my suspicions of him. And I think that this language that he uses, it is disgusting. It disgusts me. I'm offended by that. So as a conservative woman with a lot of pride, integrity, I want an answer to that question. I wanted him to give an answer. And a good answer would have been, he should have explained all the women that he's promoted in his company, how well he pays women, how much he loves women, what a valuable asset his wife is, his daughter is. I know that his daughter is invaluable to him in the Trump empire, in her work. So he had an opportunity to really show us with specifics that he values the intelligence, the talents of women. And he had an opportunity to show us as a politician, how is he going to answer that Democratic argument that there's a war on women? Saying, I say what I say. I'm sorry, Donald Trump. That doesn't cut it. And then he was asked another question about his multiple bankruptcies. Now, he's explained these were not personal bankruptcies. They were corporate bankruptcies. Here's that exchange.
Mr. Trump, you talked a lot about how you are the person on this stage to grow the economy. I want to ask you about your business record. Trump corporations, casinos and hotels, have declared bankruptcy 4 times over the last quarter century. In 2011, you told Forbes magazine this: I've used the laws of the country to my advantage. But at the same time, financial experts involved in those bankruptcies say that lenders to your companies lost billions of dollars. Question, sir, with that record, why should we trust you to run the nation's business?
Because I have used the laws of this country, just like the greatest people that you read about every day in business have used the laws of this country, the chapter laws, to do a great job for my company, for myself, for my employees, for my family, etc. I have never gone bankrupt, by the way. I have never. But out of hundreds of deals,
but sir,
excuse me,
that's your line, but your companies have gone bankrupt.
What am I saying? Out of hundreds of deals that I've done, hundreds, on 4 occasions, I've taken advantage of the laws of this country, like other people. I'm not going to name their names because I'm not going to embarrass, but virtually every person that you read about on the front page of the business sections, they've used the law. The difference is when somebody else uses those laws, nobody writes about it. When I use it, they say, oh, Trump, Trump, Trump. The fact is, I built a net worth of more than $10 billion. I have a great, great company. I employ thousands of people, and I'm very proud of the job I did. Again, Chris, hundreds and hundreds of deals. 4 times I've taken advantage of the laws, and frankly, so has everybody else in my position.
Well, sir, let's just talk about the latest example, which is Trump Entertainment Resorts, which went bankrupt in 2009. In that case alone, lenders to your company lost over $1 billion, and more than 1,100 people were laid off.
Well,
is that the way that you run the country?
Let me just tell you about the lenders. First of all, these lenders aren't babies. These are total killers. These are not the nice, sweet little people that you think, okay? You know, I mean, you're living in a world of the make-believe, Chris. You want to know the truth. And I had the good sense to leave Atlantic City, which, by the way, Caesars just went bankrupt. Every company, Chris can tell you, every company virtually in Atlantic City went bankrupt. Every company. And let me just tell you, I had the good sense, and I've gotten a lot of credit in the financial pages. 7 years ago, I left Atlantic City before it totally cratered, and I made a lot of money in Atlantic City, and I'm very proud of it.
Okay, so again, we see the bias of Fox News because Chris Wallace didn't just ask a question and move on. He kept coming with a follow-up and another follow-up and another follow-up. Now, in this instance, the problem that I perceive with Trump's response is, again, he's not being politically savvy. He's not being politically cagey. Look, what did they do with Mitt Romney in 2012 when it came to Bain Capital, which was a really honorable enterprise, an honorable company that Mitt Romney had run? They used every single thing that Bain Capital did. They used it in the general election against him to present him as a rapacious capitalist, as somebody that is going to empower a few at the cost of the many. And Donald Trump takes every question so personally. It's all about him. Look, I made $10 billion. I'm a successful businessman. You're missing the point, Donald. The point is this. How do you answer that question in a way that has broad appeal? You filed for bankruptcy with your companies, and what that means is that people that lent you money were left holding the bag. They got burned. This country doesn't like that. We don't like to hear about a deal gone sour where somebody gets burned. We need you to give us a good answer to that. Not that overall you're very wealthy. Overall, there's 100 deals that are good, but these 4 are bad. Hey, Those lenders got burned by you, because when you lend money, you lend them on faith that that person is going to abide by the terms of the loan and repay you. That's a code of honor. I know, for example, if I take out a mortgage, I feel that it's my duty, it's my responsibility to make sure I pay back my lender. No matter what. I will do anything to pay back my lender. And his response, oh, you know what? These people are sharks, Chris Wallace. I don't care. You dealt with them. You took their money, or their money was there. It was available. It was part of the transaction. It was part of the original deal. So you took their money. You owe them the money. Now you owe the people an explanation. You owe the people a political explanation. Show us that you're going to be able to field these questions effectively in the general. Right now, I'm not at all convinced that he can do that. Because what is being leveled at him, the subtext of this, if this is coming from the right, the left is going to blow it up 100 times. The subtext is that you're a greedy guy and you only care for yourself and your family, and you don't care who you burn in the process. And I don't think he gave an effective response. I use the laws of this country, blah, blah, blah. He should have gone on to explain with a great deal more composure, a great deal more detail about the specific people that his company has helped, all the good that Donald Trump Industries have done, all the people that have risen from poverty into wealth as a result of the great work of Donald Trump. Instead, once again, he brings it all back to himself. It's not about you. Show us what you've done with your money. Show us what you've done that has helped other people. And I think this way you might be able to craft a message about what capitalism is really all about. Because, look, that's what's at stake in the next election. It's going to be a debate between capitalism and socialism. And if capitalism is presented as something greedy and something that just benefits the few and leaves the many holding the bag, then we're going to lose. Instead, why don't you show us as somebody that has employed hundreds of people, that has allowed hundreds, if not thousands, to rise from one station to the next, how effective capitalism is. So again, the problem with Donald Trump is he seemed out of his depth. He doesn't understand what he needs to do when he's fielding a hostile question. And then finally, he was asked about Mexico and this policy that he says the Mexican government is deliberately enacting, which is to dump the worst of their country across the border. Listen to this.
Mr. Trump, it has not escaped anybody's notice that you say that the Mexican government is sending criminals, rapists, drug dealers across the border. Governor Bush has called those remarks, quote, extraordinarily ugly. I'd like you're right next to him, talk to him directly and say how you respond to that. And you have repeatedly said that you have evidence that the Mexican government is doing this, but that you have evidence you have refused or declined to share. Why not use this first Republican presidential debate to share your proof with the American people?
So, if it weren't for me, you wouldn't even be talking about illegal immigration, Chris. You wouldn't even be talking about it.
Okay.
This was not a subject.
All right. It goes on. And again, if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be talking about illegal immigration. I'm sorry. We've been talking about illegal immigration not just for years, but for decades. Here he is blowing up his role, and then in the rest of that clip, the exchange keeps going on, and Chris Wallace asks him again and again, give me the specific information that you have, the specific proof that the Mexican government is deliberately throwing people across the border, they're undesirables across the border. And his response was, I spoke to a couple of border guards, and that's what they told me. Look, that may be the truth. I think that is the truth. And he did get that information from those border guards. But on a political stage, he came across as just a man who shoots from the hip. Ironically, he has derided politicians, but it is clear that amongst politicians, he is out of his league. So, Fox News is a huge loser in this debate because their bias was apparent. But an even bigger loser was Donald Trump. He showed that he's not a team player. He doesn't understand that he has to court the American people. He's not our boss. He also failed to defend capitalism. And when it came to specific information about policies, he was unable to provide them. And now there is lots of bad blood between conservatives and Fox News, but also, from my perspective, bad blood towards Donald Trump. You're not worthy to lead our party.
The stories that matter, the issues that count. This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace. This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace.
She is always right there when I need her. Oh, I think that I found myself a cheerleader. She is always
Well, you know who I was cheering for at the Republican debates. It's no secret. I've been on his side from the moment he announced Governor Mike Huckabee, and he did not disappoint me. In fact, he had a great moment when he was asked about the Iran deal. Listen to Governor Huckabee in action.
Governor Huckabee, what do you think about what Senator Paul just said?
Ronald Reagan said trust but verify. President Obama is trust but vilify. He trusts our enemies and vilifies everyone who disagrees with him. And the reason we disagree with him has nothing to do with party. It has to do with the incredibly dangerous place that this world is going to be as a result of a deal in which we got nothing. We didn't even get 4 hostages out. We got nothing. And Iran gets everything they want. We said we would have anywhere, anytime negotiations and inspections. We gave that up. We said that we would make sure that they didn't have any nuclear capacity. We gave that up. The president can't tell us what we got. I'll tell you what the world got. The world has a burgeoning nuclear power that didn't, as the Soviets say, we might defend ourselves in a war. What the Iranians have said is, we will wipe Israel off the face of the map, and we will bring death to America. When someone points a gun at your head and loads it, by God, you ought to take them seriously, and we need to take that seriously.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Amen. Governor Huckabee, combative, in command of the issues, and in command of complex issues which he can explain to the folks. And he came across as tough, and unlike Donald Trump, tough but composed, tough with a clear head. That's what we want to see in a commander-in-chief. And then he also showed another side, his wit and his sense of humor. Listen to his closing comments.
It seems like this election has been a whole lot about a person who's very high in the polls, but doesn't have a clue about how to govern, a person who has been filled with scandals and who could not lead. And, of course, I'm talking about Hillary Clinton. I think America is in trouble, but it's not beyond repair. But it's going to take leadership who sees the greatness of this country and who believes that once again we can be one nation under God. I'll be my best to do that, and thank you for your support.
Now, look at how effective that was. He is composed. His sense of humor came out. And you know how absolutely brilliant that was? Because although he said it's about Hillary Clinton, in reality, it was a very masterful jab against Trump himself, because almost everything that he had listed was a description of Trump. That's why Trump burst out laughing, or at least it's a description of many charges against him. So it was witty, it was brilliant, and then he was inspiring. He knows how to inspire the folks and how to capture our ideals as a nation. He was also humble. the words, "I will do my best." A little bit of humility. Donald Trump needs to show some humility, and he needs to ask for people's support instead of acting like, "I'm the boss, do it my way or you're fired." That tone won't work in politics, and the contrast with Mike Huckabee was staggering. I mean, you have a man that is skilled in politics, like somebody like Huckabee, but you also have, I think it came across in almost everything that Huckabee said, a man that is filled with the word of God, which means what? Which means that when you're out there in the public, you're performing for the good of others, and you're doing all of this to shine a light on this country. I also think it was brilliant that Huckabee highlighted his great support of Israel, like we discussed in that earlier clip on Iran. Very, very important, too, to show how, as a commander-in-chief, he would stand with our allies. I don't think that Donald Trump did any of that, and Mike Huckabee blew him away. In fact, if you continue to watch Fox News after the debate, there was a focus group with Frank Luntz in it, leading it. And he asked the question, how many people came into this supporting Trump? And lots of people raised their hands. How many people no longer support him? And how many people still support him? And there were very few who raised their hands. And then they were asked, who surprised you or who impressed you? A lot of people said Huckabee. So, like I wrote in my column a few weeks ago, conservatives need to take a good hard look at Governor Huckabee. And if you are still interested in finding out more about him, read the column and also go to the show archives on YouTube. You'll see my interview with Governor Huckabee. I put him through his paces. I asked him every question that he's likely going to get, and he answered them all very effectively. So Huckabee continues to be one to watch. But somebody else who came out swinging and who did a great job, who really impressed me, Ted Cruz. Of all the people on that stage, Ted Cruz is the most intelligent by far. He is the best read by far. He's in a different league in terms of his command of the facts and his knowledge of policy. His ability to debate is outstanding, and he came across, I could see now, really for the first time, he came across as presidential. Not just the guy that's scrapping with the media and scrapping with the leaders of his own party, but somebody that can create policy, implement it, and actually govern. I've said for a long time that that's really my concern about Cruz. He's young. He doesn't have any governing experience. But one thing I like to see was he is drafting laws. And he's showing us that he can do that part of the job. Listen to this.
Chris, absolutely yes. And not only will I support it, I have authored Kate's Law in the United States Senate and filed that legislation. I tried to get the Senate to vote to pass Kate's Law on the floor of the Senate just 1 week ago, and the leader of our own party blocked a vote on Kate's Law. You know, there was reference made to our leaders being stupid. It's not a question of stupidity. It's that they don't want to enforce the immigration laws. That there are far too many in the Washington cartel that support amnesty. President Obama has talked about fundamentally transforming this country. There's 7 billion people across the face of the globe, many of whom want to come to this country. If they come legally, great, but if they come illegally, and they get amnesty, that is how we fundamentally change this country, and it really is striking. A majority of the candidates on this stage have supported amnesty. I have never supported amnesty, and I led the fight against Chuck Schumer's Gang of 8 amnesty legislation in the Senate.
He came to fight, and fight he did. He was impressive. He was clear. He was cogent. He had an excellent command of the facts. He is extremely politically savvy. He's also really media savvy. One of the things I admire about Ted Cruz is that he continues to survive amidst a hostile media. And Trump needs to learn to do that and keep his cool. And now we're seeing another side of Cruz. I saw for the first time the future leader. I've said from the beginning, I like him. I just think it's too soon. I wanted to see him have a much larger record of accomplishments, of achievements. Something like this, pointing to a piece of legislation that he's put together. It hasn't been passed, however, but still, it's a step in the right direction. It shows us the future Cruz, what he's going to be, and he's going to be formidable in our party, no question about it. And then I got to tip my hat off to Rand Paul. At the beginning, to be honest with you, I thought he was winning the debate. I thought that he was injecting himself everywhere he could, and he was showing us that he's there to fight for the people's interests. And there's no moment that made me prouder of Rand Paul than when he fought with Chris Christie on our rights to privacy. Listen to this.
And Megan, that's a completely ridiculous answer. I want to collect more records from terrorists, but less records from other people. How are you supposed to know, Megan?
Use the Fourth Amendment.
How are you supposed
Use
to?
the Fourth
No, I'll tell you how you
get a warrant.
Let me tell you something.
Get a judge to sign
when
a warrant.
Senator.
Wait, Governor Christie, make your point.
Listen, Senator. When you're sitting in a subcommittee just blowing hot air about this, you can say things like that. When you're responsible for protecting the lives of the American people, then what you need to do is to make sure that you use the system the way it's supposed to work.
Here's the problem, Governor. You fundamentally misunderstand the Bill of Rights. Every time you did a case, you got a warrant from a judge. I'm talking about searches without warrants, indiscriminately of all Americans' records, and that's what I fought to end. I don't trust President Obama with our records. I know you gave him a big hug, and if you want to give him a big hug again, go right ahead.
And
that was a great fight. That was a great jab. In fact, look at what Chris Christie did. He was making good points, and then he had to go for the low blow. Oh, if you want to sit on committee and blow hot air, come on, Chris Christie. The problem with Christie, he can't manage his temper. And the same thing with Donald Trump. You got to keep cool, even when you're in a scrap, even when you're in a fight. Look at Rand Paul. He was able to fight, but he never hit a really low blow. His jabs were on point. Even when he said, you hugged, at one point he told Chris Christie, go and hug Obama. That was funny. That was witty. That was effective. It didn't seem like he was saying it in uncontrolled anger. It seemed like he was saying it as a skilled debater. And the nice thing about Rand Paul, the good thing about Rand Paul, the part of Rand Paul I so admire, is this is a guy that achieves things. He's a senator, but he has actually won the battle in curtailing the powers of the NSA. That guy is a patriot. He's a fighter and he's a patriot. And of everybody on that stage, what really impressed me, he's the one. If I would appoint any single one of those to get our budget under control, it would be him. And when he said, I'm the only one that has a plan to do that and would do that, he's the only one I believe could really get our budget under control. I would hope that if he's not our nominee and not a president, he would be appointed in that task to oversee that part of our country and actually fix the problem of debt and deficits. He's stellar on that. And he showed himself to be a very effective fighter and also a good coalition builder. One part in the debate that I found really impressive about Rand Paul when he said, I'm a different kind of Republican. Hello, conservatives. He's the only guy out there courting minorities effectively, including African Americans, for the Conservative Party. The others, not really doing that, not doing a good job courting the youth, women, Hispanics, minorities. Rand Paul, very effective, courting the youth, courting blacks, trying to broaden the base of the Republican Party without sacrificing our principles. He's got a lot to offer, and when I heard him speak, my heart soared. That is a patriot. And that was, those are the highlights for me. I know Ben Carson was really elegant and charismatic and charming, but I think the standouts of the debate, the people that made me cheer and applaud, and the people I'm looking to be the future leaders of our party, Huckabee, without question, Ted Cruz, and Rand Paul. So I thought that it was a good moment for those men, And I think you're going to see their poll numbers continue to rise. Each of them show themselves to be fighters, but smart fighters, cagey fighters, effective fighters, and patriots.
Stories that matter, the issues that count. This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace. This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace.
No, honey, I'm good. I could have another, but I probably should not. I got somebody at home. It's been a long night here.
And let's not forget about the first debate, the debate at 5 o'clock, the one that came before the main event. Two people stood out in that debate. The first, and the person that I think won that debate hands down. He was in a different league than everybody else. He belongs in the frontier of Republican candidates, not in the back end. It is Rick Santorum. This is an individual who had complete command of all of the facts. His knowledge of policy was extraordinary. His presence on the stage was excellent. He stood upright and strong. He knew how to project power. We could see what he would look like as commander-in-chief. Unlike Rick Perry, by the way, who stood on the podium with his legs open, and it was a very strange stance. I mean, just in terms of perception, it was a real faux pas on Rick Perry's point of view. But Santorum, command of the facts, great presence, and also an ability to emote, to connect with the people. And I think one of his best answers was on immigration. Listen to this.
Senator Santorum, you would argue you have one of the tougher positions on illegal immigration in the entire 17 candidate field at the moment. We often talk about this issue on the abstract level in Washington, D.C., but you know how it's being talked about in states like Iowa and New Hampshire among illegals in our country today, 11 million plus. And some are asking, what would you say to a child born and raised in America who could see their family broken apart by your policy?
My father was born in Italy, and shortly after he was born, my grandfather immigrated to this country. Under the laws of this country, he wasn't allowed to be with his father for 7 years. Spent the first 7 years of his life in fascist Italy under Benito Mussolini. Not a very pleasant place to be. I asked my dad after, obviously, I found out about this, and I said, didn't you resent America for not letting you be with your father in those formative and very threatening years? You know what he said to me? America was worth the wait. We're a country of laws, Bill. We're a country of laws, not of men, not of people who do whatever they want to do. I know we have a president who wants to do whatever he wants to do and take his pen and his phone and just tell everybody what he thinks is best. But the reason America is a great country, the reason is because our compassion is in our laws. And when we live by those laws and we treat everybody equally under the law, that's when people feel good about being Americans. And I've put forth an immigration policy that is as strong in favor of the folks who are struggling in America the most than anybody else. It's the strongest pro-worker immigration plan. It says that after 35 million people have come here over the last 20 years, almost all of whom are unskilled workers, flattening wages, creating horrible opportunity, a lack of opportunities for unskilled workers. We're going to do something about reducing the level of immigration by 25%. We're going to be tough at the border. We're going to be tough on all of the illegal immigrants that everybody else in this field. We're going to be different. We're going to be actually out there trying to create a better life for hardworking Americans.
Governor Perry.
I love what he said. Our compassion is in our laws. He nailed it. Brilliant. And nice touch bringing in that personal story. He also explained his extensive experience and how many pieces of legislation as a senator he succeeded in bringing forward. This is a man that has stood up for religious liberty consistently. He is a true, devout Christian, and he knows how to champion the cause of the working man. I think he won that undercard debate hands down. But someone else who was really impressive, the only female on the stage, the only female candidate in the Republican field, Carly Fiorina. Excellent command of the facts. Listen to her answer this question.
All right, this question to Carly Fiorina. The FBI Director Comey says that terrorists can thrive here at home because they go dark and they recruit behind the cyber walls that are built by American companies like Google and Apple. Comey says this is a big problem. But Rand Paul says that the government forcing these companies to bring down those walls would be a big privacy issue and a dangerous way to go on this. You've been a tech leader in this country. Which side are you on?
Well, let me say first that it is disturbing that every time one of these homegrown terrorist attacks occurs, and as your question points out, they are occurring with far too great frequency, it turns out we had warning signals. It turns out we knew something was wrong. It turns out some dot wasn't connected. And so the first thing we have to do is make sure that everyone and every responsible agency is attuned to all of these possibilities and symptoms. We even had warnings about the Boston Marathon bombers, and yet the dots weren't connected. So we need to get on a different mindset. Secondly, I certainly support that we need to tear down cyber walls, not on a mass basis, but on a targeted basis. But let me just say that we also need to tear down the cyber walls that China is erecting, that Russia is erecting. We need to be very well aware of the fact that China and Russia are using technology to attack us, just as ISIS is using technology to recruit those who would murder American citizens. I do not believe that we need to wholesale destroy every American citizen's privacy in order to go after those that we know are suspect or are already a problem. But yes, there is more collaboration required between private sector companies and the public sector.
An incredible command of the facts. This is an individual, unlike Ben Carson. Both she and Ben Carson don't have political experience, but she hasn't held office, but she has much wider range of knowledge than Ben Carson does when it comes to policy. And it was evident in every answer, even on foreign policy. She talked about the Middle East. She talked about her travels there. She had really strong answers. Not the best answers on foreign policy. I still think that Lindsey Graham had the best answers on foreign affairs, but she held her own. She is a capable woman, and she is articulate, she is savvy, she is ferocious in attacking Hillary Clinton. There's a lot there that is excellent in Carly Fiorina. So I was impressed with her. The problem with her, unfortunately, is I don't know what she did to her face. I've seen her in previous Fox News debates, and she looked much better than she did during the debate. It looks like she's had fillers, injections, Botox. I don't know what she has done, but her face is frozen, and she looks a little strange. I know that perception is a key part of being elected, and that freezing of the face is not going to do her any good. If we have a leader that's a female and she has a couple of wrinkles, what's the big deal? Look at Angela Merkel. So big winner in the undercard debate was Rick Santorum. Another winner and rising star, Carly Fiorina. And the biggest loser of all was Rick Perry, who did not step up to the plate and show us that he has what it takes to go to the next level. This is Dr. Grace, the editor of Politics and Culture at WorldTribune.com, upholding values that will never die.
The stories that matter, the issues that count. This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace. The stories that matter, the issues that count. This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace.
Shut up, just shut up, shut up, 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 shut up, just shut up, shut up.
And this week, who deserves to be told to just shut up. It is none other than Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who heads up the DNC. And she was asked by Chris Matthews, what's the difference between a socialist and a Democrat? Roll it.
What is the difference between a Democrat and a socialist? I used to think there was a big difference. What do you think it is?
The difference between
a Democrat like Hillary Clinton and a socialist like Bernie Sanders.
What's the difference between being a Democrat and being a Republican?
Well, what's the bigger difference? What's the big difference between a Democrat and a socialist? You're the chairman of the Democratic Party. Tell me the difference between you and a socialist.
The relevant debate that we'll be having over the course of this campaign is what's the difference between a Democrat and a Republican?
I think there's.
You can't answer this? This is Politics 101. What's the difference between a Democrat and a socialist? And she kept saying in that clip, no, the bigger difference is between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. I'm sorry, that just doesn't work. That's a really poor answer. We are now talking about a Democratic primary where you have a socialist candidate who is surging against your star, Hillary Clinton. And you got to be able to explain what's the difference between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. Can you explain it? And even in broader philosophical terms, what's the difference between the Democratic Party and the Socialist Party? I think she gave a horrible response, a pathetic response. What's even more shocking is that she went on other news organizations and did the same thing. Not prepared again. If you're going to be asked a question that exposes your ignorance one time, you know what I do? I go home, I start reading, and I beef up my knowledge on that topic. No, this woman, she was embarrassed by Chris Matthews and then goes on other stations and repeats the same talking points. The Republican Party constantly says that a Democrat is the same thing as a socialist. Now you have an outspoken, self-identifying socialist in the field. And the Democrats have got to be able to say what's the difference between their values and this self-identified socialist. If they don't do that, then the charge that we Republicans make against them, that it's all socialism, it's all socialism in slow motion, that's going to stick. Now, somebody like Bill Clinton, he was really cagey. The reason that he not only won one term but a second term was he was able to present the Democrats as not these loony lefties, but as effective in governing according to a more, from their perspective, compassionate policy worldview. That was good politics for Bill Clinton. Hillary Clinton now, she is sliding further and further to the left, embracing more and more of Bernie Sanders' socialism, and the head of the DNC can't distinguish anymore between what is a Democrat and what is a socialist. When that happens, you've got huge problems as a party. And don't sit there and tell me that the big difference is between Democrats and Republicans, Wasserman Schultz. The big difference now that everybody is looking at, we want an answer to that question. Is Hillary going to become a socialist just like Bernie Sanders? And does that mean she's going to bring the Democratic Party whole hog into the socialist movement? Or is there going to be a difference? Don't point your finger at Republicans. And if you can't do that, just shut up.
Hey, let's get it now.
On this show, I've been calling Hillary Clinton a crook from the beginning, slippery Hillary. She's a con artist, just like her husband. And this week, finally, the FBI has launched a criminal probe. This follows the heels of two inspectors generals who have said this conduct here needs to be looked at by the Attorney General and by the FBI regarding her use actually misuse of classified information. And finally, the FBI is going to do an investigation. Clinton's campaign is saying, oh, but this is not a criminal probe. Hogwash. When the FBI investigates you, it is criminal. The FBI is by definition a criminal outfit. Its reason for being is to find and bring to justice criminals. When the FBI has its sights on you, it's very, very bad news. And you know what? Even if the FBI doesn't ultimately level charges against her, her campaign is going down because at a minimum, her use of a private email server and her misuse of classified information was reckless, and she is not worthy of holding any further office. She wasn't worthy of being Secretary of State, and she's not worthy of being the next Commander-in-Chief. You are listening to Dr. Grace, the editor of Politics and Culture at WorldTribune.com, and every week I do my best to uphold values that will never die.
This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace.